If it was so bad, why did you stay? Have you been asked that? I have. In the comments. I didn't stay because I was stupid or weak. And in this video, I'll share some of the reasons I did stay, so that you might be able to see your story in mine. This was the 1980s. It was before the internet. Nobody had mobile phones. There were no apps where you could see your story replicated on your telephone by some young woman who was going through it all the same as you. There wasn't any of that. So we stayed blissfully ignorant. The term narcissist certainly wasn't around. Well, I never heard of it. Coercive control wasn't a term that I'd heard of either. But that's what was happening. And I didn't realise that unless you had bruises, it wasn't abuse. That's just the way it was. We were blissful, or not quite so blissful, in our ignorance. None of these things had a name, had a diagnosis. But they do these days. And coercive control in England is actually illegal. But there you go. When you're in a marriage like that, when you're in a marriage like that, it doesn't start overnight. It starts by drip feeding you, bit by bit, a way of behaviour that you gradually don't realise you've accepted. The insults, well, I just accepted those. I shouldn't have, but I did. But then I was 16. What do you expect? The control over money, I accepted. At the time, it was because I was staying at home with the baby. And he would come home on a Friday and dish me out the housekeeping for the week. And he would want me to keep a running total of it all the time. And he did actually say, if you have saved a halfpenny, then I'll have it back. That's just the way it was. I didn't even have a bank account of my own. But there you go. Things are different now, thank goodness, for younger women. The other thing is that you rationalise their behaviour because you think, well, he doesn't punch me. He isn't violent. Well, I don't have any bruises, so it's not that bad. I think he's stressed. I think he works too hard. He's probably tired. You rationalise it. And you rationalise the money and the control because initially you think, oh, he must love me. Well, obviously he doesn't. But, it seeps into your psyche. You accept it. And then before you know it, years have gone by and you've got into a rut. And you realise you don't know who you are anymore. And then you start hearing things. You start hearing that his behaviour hasn't been all that it's cracked up to be. He's been playing away, as they say. And you don't know what you've done wrong, because obviously it must be your fault. And you wonder what you should do about it. If you've watched my last video, the Fawn Response, and how I became the perfect wife, then you will realise that although I didn't know, I had been rewired in my brain to become a people pleaser, to keep the peace, to keep me safe. So I'm talking about my first marriage here. I didn't say anything to him about what I'd been hearing because I knew he'd be fuming. I knew deep down that he would create a massive row and, he could be volatile. So I said nothing. And, oh dear, I carried on people pleasing. I carried on placating him. I swallowed down all the bits of information that I was hearing from here, there and everywhere. And thought it must be me that had created the problems. I took responsibility for his behaviour. Now I think about it, I can't believe I was that ridiculous, but I did it. Thinking about leaving him was terrifying. I didn't know where I could go with the children, what I would do, how I would keep myself and the children. I didn't know what to do. I was really concerned about the children. Maybe it was just as well to just leave it alone and let things be. And I could imagine that when you're older, you might be thinking, I've put so much into this marriage, 30, 40, 50 years. I don't think I could leave now because I've put too much into it. So you stay. You stay and you don't find out what your life would be like if you left, if you took the step and made plans to leave. I can understand that. But these days you've got far more resources than I did then. The only thing that I could actually do was get perhaps a free appointment at the Citizens Advice Bureau before I made my decision, but I didn't do that. Eventually, I went across the road to a solicitor and I filed for divorce. But even then, if I had really been thinking it through, I shouldn't have told him. I should have done all of my planning months before and put in place things for me and my children. But I didn't. If I were talking to the younger me, if I were talking to that 28-year-old woman, I'd say, don't do anything yet. Get everything in order and then do it. Because you can't go back. But I didn't. And I didn't have a mother advising me, and I certainly didn't have a father advising me either. I didn't actually have anybody advising me. So I made all of these mistakes. Now, the things that keep you staying in the marriage are hope and confusion and the tiny crumbs that he gives you every now and then, and you think, oh, he's not so bad. We do have nice times sometimes. He's not always horrible. And they too keep you in the marriage. But it's only looking back you realise how tiny those crumbs were. After I left my husband, he tried to win me back. And I miss my children. So I did give it another go. He came up to my auntie's house. He took me back. He and my children had moved down to Devon. And it took about a week before I had woken up that I should never have come back, ever. He was just as bad, if not worse. And I had to go through the whole sorry process again, and it was terrifying. I felt ashamed that I was leaving again. I felt powerless and I felt frightened. I had been threatened by him before. I can remember being at the school gates and walking down the road with my small son in his buggy. And my husband was in his car. He saw me. He pulled right across the road, up onto the pavement, jumped out of the car and said, "If you leave me, the only child you'll be looking after is the one that's in heaven," referring to our baby who died in a cot death. So he was capable of being very threatening and also losing his temper and all the ways that that impacts on your state of mind. Anyway, the day that I left for the second time, I got in my car. I got onto the A303, which I don't know if it's still the same main road down to Devon from London. Maybe there's a motorway that goes there now. But that's the route I took. And I was driving back to London on the A303 when I noticed somebody flashing me in my rear mirror. And it was him. And he proceeded to drive right up onto my bumper and bump me. I was going up a very steep hill, and on one side, on our side of the road, on my side of the road, there was a steep embankment going down that was full of trees, going into a valley. And he just kept on bumping me, bumping my car. And at one point he was just driving me along on his bumper. And I thought, he's trying to push me off the road, down that embankment. It was terrifying. So I found a lay-by and I got out of the car. And he told me he wanted me back. He wanted me to drive back to Devon. and stay and give it another chance. And he said he wanted me to think about it. So I said I would. And then he left. But I never did go back. I had learned my lesson. The one thing that I wish I had done is that I wish that I had planned better, more thoroughly. I wish that I had got all the photographs of the children I wanted out of the house, all those little bits of memorabilia that I wish I'd taken. Things of my own I wish I'd taken. Documents. Paying in books into our accounts. A checkbook. But as it was, the night I told him, foolishly, that I'd gone to the solicitor, he just threw me out. He took all of my keys from my keyring and he threw me bodily out of the house. I couldn't take anything with me, and I couldn't take the children. He made them wave goodbye. He didn't want them. He wanted them as a method of controlling me. I did get one of my children back eventually through the court, and years later I got the other two because they had realised how much their father had lied to them. But I should have planned better. And that's what I would tell my younger self. I want women watching this video to know that you aren't weak, you aren't stupid, you aren't mad for staying for such a long time. You were trying to figure out your options and finding the courage to put those options into actions. And that's the hardest bit. You can still love someone and know that they're harmful to you. But you don't have to stay. You can choose to look after yourself and your own well-being. And next week, there'll be another video about women's issues. And if you have been, thanks so much for watching. Lots of love. Bye-bye.